Hello everyone, and welcome back to my channel, and my foray into, more creative type of content. While I did try delving into YouTube parodies, I found myself getting annoyed with reactions, and even despising them. Unfortunately, I was not able to get the same type of views, so hopefully, this video will change that. Anyways, without further ado, here's my analysis of Unordinary, and the theme of helping others, and why I think it is a prevalent theme in the story I've been following for years. Chapter 1. John, a powerless man in a world where power is all. We start off our story like any good fictional tale, with strong world building. It begins with a prologue.
2 years ago, my father wrote a book. It was about a man who lived amongst a world of cripples. This man, he used his ability only for others, helping the weak, saving lives, spreading wealth.
As this currently unnamed main character says, even though he ends up dying, it wasn't sad because he helped people, brought charity, and the world became peaceful. This unnamed man is revealed to be John, and we get introduced to the way this world works. It has a hierarchy, a system to it. The strong get what they want, and they get good grades in school, get treated with respect and kindness, while the weak, well, they get treated like John.
I expected it to be different.
Do you really have to die before you understand?
Another day has come.
Like he's nothing. He's crippled. He can't do anything that everyone else can. They call him a zero? No, that's not actually what he's called, and that's just the physical edition censoring it not to offend. Okay, actually, they called him a cripple. Why? Well, as I already said, power means everything in this world, and the strong survive, and they thrive. They have an advantage over the people like John, who are weak, and they get bullied in school, and treated like one of those nerdy kids you went to class with. You know the one. That one kid who's always getting good grades in math. The teacher's pet. That little piece of shit. Oh, okay. I'm sorry.
They ask you how you are, you just have to say that you're fine when you're not really fine, but you just can't get into it.
Anyways, they get treated like that, but on steroids. And the series was like, you know, if Deku from My Hero Academia was hated by everyone and not just Bakugo for not having ability, or in my hero's case, a quirk. Basically, they get treated like complete ass, but on steroids. And as the story goes on, John is constantly put down. He's nothing. He's crippled. He can't do anything that everyone else can do. And well, that lack of power makes John the victim. We finally even get a flashback to the start of the story that shows John going to his school. It's his first time here, he's introducing himself, and he says he's a cripple.
So John,
This place was just like the rest of the world.
what kind of ability do you have?
Well, to be completely honest, I don't have one.
And this is followed by dialogue that shows John describing exactly what I've been trying to describe, but even better than me.
In this world, strength defines a person, and those without strength are crushed. Those without strength are nothing.
John. Okay, so let's break this down. As far as we know, John is powerless. He's at the bottom of the totem pole. And as far as we know, he is a cripple. So, how does it relate to the theme of strength and using it for others? You lied to us! This is clickbait! I'll kill you!
Well, that was anticlimactic.
Okay. Put on your pitchforks. Put them down. Please, calm down. I'll explain this in a moment. The reason why this relates back to the theme is because John is actively trash-talking the hierarchy. He's had multiple moments where he actively hates on the way things are run, and this leads to the next part of the video. Chapter 2, Serafina, the Yang to John's Yin. So, we've established John's weakness and disdain for the very society that he's a part of. But who's that girl who's always near John? Well, she's Serafina. Sarah for short. And she is known to be close friends with John from the very start of the story. We only really get introduced to her past a bit later. Although it is still early on in the story. But here, we get shown that John is being made fun of and bullied for being, zero? Actually, I mean a cripple. John calls out to Sarah for help, but she ignores him, and John uses one of the bully's friends against him, and then runs away, but stops for a moment to basically say,
"Thanks for nothing."
After him!
And then runs away. Later on, they have a test, a sort of, I think, math test, and John refuses to cheat off Sarah, much to her annoyance. But, of course, this leads to them gaining the friendship that they have in the story that we start off with. And that only happened because people were treating Sarah horribly for literally not being perfect. And there's a really good Sarah quote I'd like to discuss.
"I must be perfect." But when you're consistently perfect, it's no longer an accomplishment.
And sure, you may be asking, what's the big deal? I mean, it's just a quote. But there's another part of the quote that's more interesting, and I'd like to discuss it here.
But I also came to accept that this was exactly how everything was supposed to be. Just like how the strong will always stand at the top, and the weak will forever stay at the bottom.
Interesting, right? Very interesting. It's kind of like yin and yang, the concept of light and dark. Everything has its dynamic opposite.
Life is the result of the struggle between dynamic opposites, form and chaos, light and dark, and all the infinite variations of yin and yang. When the pendulum swings in favor of one, it eventually swings back in favor of its opposite.
One cannot exist without the other. And by having two people from different sides of the spectrum, Uru-chan, the author, is ingeniously showing both sides of hierarchy, the spectrum, to our face too. Both main characters have different circumstances, and those circumstances are pointed out and made obvious to the reader in a perfect way. Every good story does this, and there's always two sides to every coin. Also, a bit of a side tangent here, that line about yin and yang, I sort of took a lot of it from the movie for the anime series that I'm obsessed with, Fist of the North Star. More specifically, the dub of the start of the film. And why am I mentioning this? Well, it's quite simple. It's because Fist of the North Star tried to do this too in the first arc. Well, at least of the anime. Much like Unordinary, it starts off head first Well, Unordinary starts off with a prologue technically, but Fist of the North Star does too, so the comparison still counts, okay? Anyways, in the first arc, known as the Shin arc, we get introduced to Kenshiro, a master of a martial art called Hokuto Shinken, and the sole successor to that technique. And while those may have heard of Fist of the North Star, but maybe don't know the series that much, are probably facepalming saying, Fist of the North Star? Really? Really? Why Fist of the North Star? And to that I say, shut the fuck up. I'll get to why I'm saying this in a moment. God damn it. Anyways, Kenshiro's introduced as a wanderer, and he is looking for someone. We don't know who. All we know is a name, Yuria, and a face. He hallucinates her face in the sky, and then the second thing we're introduced to is a hand coming out of the ground, seemingly to grab him. Another hallucination caused by lack of water. We also then see the man's face. He's smiling, he's laughing, and there's a bit of an aura around him. And we see that this man is bad news. But we don't know why or what his connection is to Kenshiro. In the anime, they combine the Lin gang captured subplot from later on in the manga with Heart. An anime original story, sort of, also is added to it. Sort of. It's kind of complicated. In the anime, they combined the Lin gang captured subplot from later on with Heart, and created a sort of anime original filler/canon combo. Kenshiro beats Diamond and Club, and yes, they are from the manga, by the way. This is sort of like a mix between filler and canon in a way. The first season of the anime is very mixed with this, but it does this at the start really well. And in the next episode anyways, we're introduced to Heart, a man known as the martial artist Killer, who uses his fat to cushion himself against a martial artist like Kenshiro's attacks. Heart slips up and triggers Kenshiro by giving Kenshiro the answer he needs. While Kenshiro is knocked down, Heart mocks him and mentions how he's invincible, except for the man he calls Lord King, who uses a Nanto Seiken style, which reveals to Kenshiro that whoever this king is, they are probably this man named Shin. And while the Fist of the South Star does have multiple successors, Fist of the South Star / Nanto Seiken is part of that, Fist of the South Star group. Anyways, it's divided into different schools and different styles, all with a role and a destiny to behold. Shin is a master of Nanto Seiken, and that style is his and his only. After realizing who this king is, that seems to have so much power over the area that Kenshiro has been wandering for the past 3 episodes, Kenshiro finds his reason to keep fighting, and tells Heart that his Hokuto Shinken is invincible. And after beating Heart, Kenshiro comments on he finally knows who King is. The name? Well, as I've already said, it's Shin. And that he will follow him to the end of the earth. This perfectly sets up the next episode where we find out about Kenshiro's backstory, which I don't want to spoil because I honestly think Fist of the North Star is an anime that people just have to see for themselves. And this is honestly good since it's getting a reboot, but the reboot will probably be more accurate to the manga, so you won't really get the genius of the early episodes that the original anime. And, this audition works great, and it works in the story's favor, as the whole flashback to Kenshiro's master talking about how Nanto Seiken is Hokuto Shinken's Yang and Hokuto Shinken's Yin has a lot more payoff. It's built up as a realization, as we, the audience, are kept in the dark, just like Kenshiro. And I mention this because this is exactly what Unordinary is doing in the early chapters. It has a bit of a mystery to it, One example being the terrorist group Ember. John actively speaks praises to the superheroes, saying that they are just trying to help. But Sarah obviously asks John, well, do you feel safe now that they are dead? Do you feel better? And later on, it is revealed that John has his book called Unordinary, and tells Sarah. The book mentioned in the prologue, obviously, and Sarah mentions how she's always wanted to read it, but it's hard to get, and it is banned. And she mentioned the rumors of it brainwashing people and causing them to act up or go mad. John explains that that's not the case at all, and that rather they just understood the message of the book, and he tells Sarah that she'd have to read it to understand it. This leads up well to my next point. However, I think that next point will have to go to a part 2, as this script is already spanning multiple pages, and I don't want to waste your time. So, if you want to hear more of my opinions on Unordinary, then please subscribe to keep up with my channel for whenever I make a part 2. Like I said, I have been reading this story for years, and I finally own a physical edition, which I wanted.